This is workshop 6 in a series of 10 workshops on researching your family history in Ireland. And this workshop covers 2 land surveys. One is the Griffith's Valuation revision books, which I'll explain in a moment, and the other one is the Tithe Applotment Books. Now, in workshop 4, we looked at the Griffith's Valuation itself, big land survey published mainly in the 1850s. And workshop 5, we looked at the 2 censuses of 1901 and 1911. Hopefully now you will have used the same townland, because most people did not move around, in order to be able to find your people in the 1911 and 1901 census, and also then to look for them in the Griffith's Valuation in that townland and hopefully find people of the same name there. You may not know exactly what relation they are to you, but you should have found some people of the same name in that townland. We want to link them together now. We can link them together using births, marriages and deaths, which we will do in greater detail in the next 3 workshops. But for this workshop, I want to show you the Griffith's Valuation revision books, which will link up the Griffith's Valuation of the mid-1850s with the censuses of 1901 and 1911. Because what happened was that the Griffith's Valuation, as I said at the time, was a land survey done in order to be able to tax people on the amount of land that they held, or indeed the size of their house, the value of their house. And this survey needed to be updated, obviously, whenever people passed away or sold their farm or emigrated to America or whatever. So, as those events happened, the valuation office must have been informed or did regular surveys or whatever, and they discovered, say for example, that somebody like William Gray of Englishtown had passed away, and the farm or little cottage that he held, because nobody owned anything in those days except the big landowners, so I always try and say which he held and was paying taxes on. It had passed on perhaps to his son Samuel, or perhaps to his nephew John, or something like that. So when he was informed about this, the local valuation official found his Griffith's Valuation book, and he simply put a pen mark through that man's name, as you will see on the screen here. Put a mark through his name and wrote the name of the person who had taken over responsibility for that piece of land or house. And then in the margin, so let me show you first of all here some examples of it. John Gallagher here has disappeared completely, and his little house, it says house there, didn't pass on to anybody. I suspect it was because it was such a small house that it was tumbled down and wasn't used by anyone. Up here we have somebody whose name is, I think it's Patrick McElhinney, has been scored out, and written above it is the name John Grant. And the reason why I have this particular photograph is because I was researching the Grants at this time. It was a family from Malin, up near Malin End, and this was the first appearance of John Grant. So I wanted to know, when did he appear? When did he take over the, not ownership, but when did he take over the property, the farm or whatever it was? So I had to follow the line all the way across here, and that means, because of the exigencies of what I was doing at the time, I needed to take 2 photographs, and there's the other photograph following it over, and I can see that the mark is scored out there and it's scored out there. That's the value, and it becomes a public house. So the change in that case was to a public house. Down here, do you remember we said that, what was his name again? I've forgotten. Look at it. John Gallagher. John Gallagher is scored out, and we can see that John Gallagher was scored out in 1862. Now, if I had a colour photograph here, that scoring out would have been done in a particular colour ink, and the date would have been written beside it in a particular colour ink. If there was another scoring out at a later time, they would have used a different coloured ink. They used all sorts, pink and purple and green and blue and everything, all sorts of colours. And the date and the scoring out is always in the same colour. The problem is, of course, that we're working in black and white here, so you cannot see that. But those changes then, they were made from the time that the Griffith's valuation was published. Some of them were published as early as 1848, some as late as 1864, most of them about the mid-1850s. And every time there was a change of ownership of a house, or a change of who held the house, there was a change made to the Griffith's Valuation Revision Book. Name scored out and another one put in. And this continues all the way through from the mid-1850s through to 1901, so that you can see who held your grandparents' or great-grandparents' house in 1901, because all of a sudden their name will turn up on these Griffith's Valuation Revision Books. You know they're in the townland from the 1901 census. You will see them appearing in the Griffith's Valuation Books, and you will know who they got their farm or their house from. It actually continues on beyond 1901 and 1911 up to the 1930s, about 1930-32. So you have changes in the holding of that land or house from the mid-1850s through to the 1930s. This is extremely valuable in genealogical terms. We know who the house passed from and to. Very often it's father to son, sometimes it's father to nephew or niece. Sometimes the house is sold, the people emigrated, and it moves to a completely different family. This is all part of the fun of genealogy. So, Griffith's Valuation Revision Books, sometimes referred to as Griffith's Valuation Revision Lists. Where can we find these? They are not online, unfortunately. They are to be found either in the Public Records Office of Northern Ireland in Belfast, or in the National Library of Ireland in Dublin, or the Mormons, God bless them, have filmed an awful lot of these Griffith's Valuation Revision Books and store them in their massive vaults in Salt Lake City. And you can search online in the Mormons website, the Latter-day Saints website, the Family Search website is what it's called, and find which ones are available on their microfilms, and you can send for that microfilm. They won't send it to you, but they will send it to your nearest family history centre, family history library. The nearest one for me here in Donegal is in Derry City. And again, Google it. If you don't know where yours is, go online and Google Family History Centre, and you will get a list of the entire family history centres all over the world, again published by the Mormons, and find which is closest to you. Let me show you here where it is online. There we go. If you put General Valuation Revision Lists into the FamilySearch.org library. Okay, call up FamilySearch.org, click onto their library. There will be various search options. Put General Valuation Revision Lists into the search options, and you will get a list of all of the General Valuation Revision Books or revision lists which they have. Now, they don't have them all, unfortunately. I happen to be very lucky living in Donegal, because they do have all of the ones for Donegal, and there are several of them. There's one there in the Donegal Union. There's another one in the Glenties Union. That tells me that this particular one is around the town of Donegal. This one tells me that it's around the town of Glenties. There's one around the town of Milford. So you have to find the right one that's suitable for you. But when you do, click on it, and it will bring up the details. And again, if you go up here and click on View Film Notes, you have the most useful bit of all, because it tells you what townlands and what townlands are in that particular GVRB. Remember, it was the Milford Union up here, and here are all the townlands. So you can look through for your particular townland. There's dozens of them here, dozens of them in the Milford Union, all over the place. If you're feeling lost about it, don't forget that you can always go up to your search box up there, find. It's in different places depending upon what search engine you're using. Click on Find, and I could type in there, for example, if I was looking for the townland of Toome, Toome, and lo and behold, there's the townland of Toom. Once I've found the townland or townlands that I am interested in, then I can go over here to the right hand side, and that will tell me what film I need to order from the Mormons. Family History Library, British Film 836440. So that's the film that you would go on to the Family Search website, back to the Family Search website, and order that film. Costs £7.50 to have it sent. Quite a bit of money, but well worth it because it is so much valuable information in it. So, Griffith's Valuation and Revision books, extremely useful. We also have the Tithe Applotment Books. Now, the Tithe Applotment Books was another land survey carried out, again to see how much money would be paid to the church this time rather than the state, carried out in the 1830s and only recently put online for all of Ireland except for Northern Ireland. The 6 counties of Northern Ireland aren't on it, unfortunately. Hopefully they will be before too long. Tithe Applotment Books, I can show you an example of here as well, of what they look like. There's one, Tithe Applotment Book, and again, it's a simple land survey with the names of people down the left-hand column. There's W.M. William Montgomery, there's Widow Carey, and there's James Hempel, and that's the man I was looking for, James Hempel. And I have discovered that he shared his land with Widow Carey and Richard, can't see what that says, so make it a bit bigger, Richard Kirkland. Interesting information in itself. How come he was associated with those two people? Perhaps I will discover later on that he had married into that family or something. What was this land? Boggy pasture, and there's the value of it there. The rest of this information isn't of much interest to us. But what we're most interested in is that James Hempel held land in that townland in about the late 1820s, early 1830s. You can find the exact dates online in various other places. Now, yet again, we can search for this, because as I said, it went online. The best place to search for this is, again, using Google. If you type in Ireland Tithe Applotment Books, just type in Ireland Tithe Applotment Books. If you also type in Family Search beside it, Ireland Tithe Applotment Books Family Search, you will get the Mormons' version of the online information. It's in 2 different places. One, the government put it online, and 2, the Mormons put it online. And I find the Mormons one is much more user-friendly. So I would advise you to put in Family Search after Ireland Tithe Applotment Books so that you get their version of it. And this is their version of it here. So, less is more. Don't bother about all this stuff here down here that you could add. All we want is the name of the person that we're looking for. In this case, it was James Hempel. H-E-M-P-H-I-L-L. James Hempel. Click search. Obviously, if you were looking for a name like Patrick Doherty, you might have considerably more difficulty, and you might have to do a lot more searching and add extra information. You could do that down here in any of these places. You could add extra information about them. That's where you would put it in there, other place. Remember, when you're searching a database, there's no point in putting in information that the database will not have. I showed you an example just now of what is available in the Tithe Applotment Books for James Hempel. There's no information about his spouse or his parents or anything else, so don't put in spouse information, parents information, because it won't help you. The only other piece of information that is useful is where was he living. So if you had an awkward name, a common name like Doherty, you would want to go to other places and add some more information. But my James Hempel was very easy to research because I knew that he was living in Maville, and there's only one James Hempel in Maville. Oh, there's 2, there's another James Hempfile. Oh, notice by the way that unlike the database that we looked at in the last session, which was the Censuses, which was spelling sensitive, you had to put in exactly the right spelling. With this one, Typical of the Mormons, they do these things really well. It's not spelling sensitive, so it's calling up not just James Hempel the way I spelled it, but it's calling up one there that looks vaguely like Hempel, and in fact it is the Hempel family. I know that this is a relation of my James Hempel, just spelled differently. So, this is the one we wanted. Click on his name. And there he is. James Hempel, tax assessment, Tithe Applotment Books. Gives the right year. That might be important later on if he emigrated shortly before or after that. That might be very important to us. There's the townland, Ballynally. And if I go over here, I can view the actual image itself. Click on there. And this is where the Mormon one becomes much more user-friendly. There's the page that I showed you already with James Hempel's name up there. But unlike the government one, this one, the Mormon one, allows you to click backwards and forwards into other pages. And that means that if you are researching Ballynally as I was, I can quite easily click onto all the other pages that are to do with Ballynally. If I click that one, 87, it will show me who else was in Ballynally, which could be very important to you. So, Tithe Applotment Books are one of the earliest, possibly the earliest, useful source that you will find in Irish family history. Remember, these are the 1820s, early 1830s. If somebody is 70 in here, all of a sudden you will have jumped back to 1770 or 1760 perhaps. So very useful online database, but not for the counties of Northern Ireland as yet, unfortunately.